there.
Okay.
It's often been said that the Ron Howard film aims at the mainstream audience. Yet when we look at Beautiful Mind, it doesn't look like commercial material at all. Was it difficult to get it off the ground then?
Well, it was a bit challenging. My business partner at Imagine Films, Brian Grazer, who's the producer of the film, is a wonderful Hollywood insider, and it's a great tribute to him that he was able to get the financing for what is a very unusual kind of Hollywood film. As a director, I like to choose unusual subjects, and if you look back at a number of the films I've made, they're not such obvious commercial possibilities. When people anticipate them, they think they're kind of risky. But one thing I do try to do is make the stories accessible on a very human level, so that audience members can connect with the characters and sort of enjoy the film on a personal sort of a basis.
I think it's the second time you dealt with real life characters. I could imagine it would be easier to deal with fictional characters. Would you agree?
Well, certainly, making any film is a creative undertaking, and it has to be. And of course, you can take all the liberties you want with fiction. When you are dealing with someone's life, you have to take that into account, just on a basic human level, on a moral level. But I think, interestingly enough, that working on the couple of films based on true stories, Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, has been very, very good for me as a director, because it taught me that it forced a kind of restraint on my directorial approach that has been very healthy, and audiences have actually responded, very well. And I think I've learned the value of that absolute simplicity and truth, and there's great power in that. I may not have appreciated that quite as well prior to, say, making Apollo 13.
The moment of choice which is offered to the character. I think I've seen that a couple of times in your films. I remember Tom Hanks thinking about diving in the ocean, or Kurt Russell sticking to his friend at the end, even if it means death. Are those moments that you look for, because they're always the emotional highlights of the film?
Well, thank you. It's very interesting, because when I'm in story sessions, meeting with writers, later talking to actors, and thinking directorially, about staging the scenes, I always think that those decisions are really where the drama lies in a story. And when I say drama, I don't necessarily mean that they're not important in a comedy. I mean, it's all drama to me, because it's all about choice, conflict, and usually the stories are about tests. Again, whatever the tone, from children's fantasy to a realistic drama like A Beautiful Mind or Apollo 13. I'm interested in those moments of decision and understanding, why people make the choices they do make.
Interesting. When Nash has his picture taken in the film, you cut to a painting, I think an abstract kind of painting. Did you want to give little hints about his mental illness even before you reveal the twist?
There are a number of clues that do exist, and little indications, and this was a very interesting part of the challenge, because on the one hand, yes, it's based on a true story, and while we had to narrow the focus of Nash's story, the highlights, the highs and lows, are inspired by his life and based on truth. But unlike, say, Apollo 13, which was more of a docudrama, this is trying to create for the audience a sort of a more personal sense of what it's like to go on the journey. So now you're talking about genius and madness. Well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And in presenting it, it's much more artful. It's a bit stylized. It's almost allegorical. I hope at the end that what people take away from the story is a very truthful sense of what this kind of experience, this kind of journey of the mind, might have felt like for John Nash. There's no way of really literally knowing, so it's my interpretation after much research, much discussion, and much thought. But yes, if people who see the movie a second time enjoy and have talked to me about noticing, various clues and insights along
like
the
the
way.
cut to the painting.
Or
is that
that's a first one.
Right.
Yeah, but what I was interested in is using his point of view as much as possible and details, and so that's what that cut represents, and or it's just his sort of perception of the world that he's very aware of particular images, particularly geometric shapes, relationships, and things like that.
Mm. And you have long dialogue scenes, and there's tricky body language in it too. When do you actually know that it's going to work on screen? I mean, portraying a guy with mental illness, maybe it looks fake.
Well, that's a very good point. And early on in rehearsal, Russell Crowe and I spent a lot of time looking at documentaries, studying taped interviews of people who have schizophrenia, and taped interviews of the elder John Nash, who didn't give us a lot of clues as to what he might have been like when he was ill, because gratefully he's a survivor now. But what I decided with Russell, and what I saw with Russell as we went through rehearsals, is that some of his choices were very extreme, some very subtle, some there in the middle. But if I tried to control them too much, it was an encumbrance on his performance. So instead what we did is arrange, and he left it up to me. This liberated him as an actor to feel free to take risks. And he trusted that I would take the material to the editing room and build something that was cohesive. And sometimes, let the affects or the behaviors, the eccentricities spike, and other times hold them down. But rather than him trying to control it, or me, as we were shooting, be a little freer with it and let those choices fall to the editing room, which is something that I was very comfortable with, and I appreciated his trust.
The delusion of the little girl, she carries around the book, and I think I once saw it's a Dr. Do I pronounce it right? Dr. Seuss
Dr.
book?
Seuss, yeah.
Is that something like an inside joke or coincidence?
It's a sort of an inside joke, because while Akiva Goldsman, the screenwriter, was working on the screenplay, I kept saying, I'm too busy. I can't read it. I can't commit to it. I know it's a wonderful project, but I'm so busy doing The Grinch. So just as a little inside joke, he put that in the script, and I liked it, and it survived all the way to the final cut.
Okay. Well, about coincidences like that, the actor who plays the guy who breaks the news about the Pulitzer is the same actor who was playing that guy in Bogdanovich's What's Up, Doc, giving a prize to professors. Is that coincidence? Or?
Total coincidence.
Okay.
Because I didn't remember from What's Up, Doc. But Austin Pendleton is a terrific actor who I've wanted to work with for many years.
All right, great. Now, was it difficult to make Russell Crowe look younger than his actual years?
Well, I was concerned about that, and in fact, when I first met Russell, it was one of my primary concerns. But when I met him, he happened to have been clean shaven, and it wasn't exactly an audition, but maybe he got ready for the meeting a little bit, because he looked really good and youthful, and I looked at some other films that spanned the ages, and I realized that the greater portion of the movie was going to be Russell playing very close to his own age, so for that reason it was sort of easier to use the makeup on the one end and change a haircut, watch the wardrobe, and cast carefully. So that we were making the same kind of progression with all the actors from sort of the age of graduate student, onward.
Yeah. Well, question I have to ask, of course, the Academy Awards coming up. How important are they to you personally?
Well, it's a great tradition. So on the one hand, I realize, and I've always felt, that it's really impossible to select a best of anything in a, you know, when you're talking about creative endeavors. At the same time, as a fan and as a person working in, you know, the film industry, it's a great tradition. So, you know, I'd be delighted to win one, but I'm very fortunate in that my career is realizing itself in a very satisfactory manner for me. I'm working on the films I want to working with the people I want to work with. The subjects interest me. The studios support more, you know, mostly support the films that I want to do. Sometimes there's a little bit of a battle, but I don't need the film to sort of push me to some other level or make more things accessible. However, where the award is very valuable, or any of the awards that we could win, and we're nominated in 8 categories, is in taking a fairly difficult subject and helping, you know, bring it to audiences. Mm-hmm. That, you know, it's a seal of approval, and because this is a movie I'm really proud of, you know, I want as many people to see it as possible. Not only for the financial, but I'm proud of what the movie has to say, and I think it's some of my best work. So I want as many people to see it as possible.
Mm-hmm. I watched the AFI show yesterday night when you paid tribute to your one of your mentors, Mr. Fonda. Is there anything we can track back from Beautiful Mind to that part of of that progress?
Well, I was always very interested in drama, and my favorite movies, when asked to sit and make a list, are very humanistic and mostly dramatic. Some with a bit of comedy mixed in, like say One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something like that, or The Apartment. Some comedy, mm-hmm. some drama. And during that period, Henry Fonda was the first adult, I was 16 when I worked with him, was the first adult to say to me, film is a director's medium, not an actor's medium. And if you're interested in film, you should become a filmmaker. And he gave me some film theory books, some sort of serious analytical books, which I sort of stupidly lost. He was an important figure because he pushed me to become a director and to follow that dream. As I became a director, it was easier for me to direct comedies because as an actor, that's what I was best known for. So slowly but surely, over the period of sort of the last 15, 20 years, you know, I've reached the point where it doesn't surprise anyone if I make A Beautiful Mind. Uh-huh. But that would have been pretty shocking, you know, if I would have started with that kind of film. I don't think anyone would have let me. Uh-huh. So I'm proud of the progress because now as a director, I'm actually working more on the kinds of films that I probably have always responded to best as a film goer. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty long answer. I don't know if
well, that's great.